What is the latest, just to give us an overview?
Yeah, well, not a lot has changed since Benji and the players fronted to do media. Lachlan Galvin will have captain's run with West for New South Wales Cup tomorrow. He'll play at Lidcombe Oval on Easter Monday. What is next is what the Tigers do on Tuesday when they sit down after the game and work out who's playing next weekend, and that will determine, I guess, the next course of action. Because if they decide he's still playing New South Wales Cup, or if they play, or he's going to come back to first grade, I imagine it'll be dictated by the result. Like if the Tigers go and get pumped by 50 on Easter Monday, there's going to be a world of pressure to bring him back. If they go out and win 30-0 and they put on a show, well, Lachlan Galvin's not coming back. And I really don't see a world where it becomes the animosity is shared towards Lachlan Galvin from some of those senior players. It's going to be a long road back for him to earn their trust again.
Kevy, do you play him?
Not play him, yeah, my word. Provided, I mean, there's a lot of issues there floating, isn't there, with the senior players.
Yeah.
Benji clearly hasn't got a problem, but they need to sort that out because, you know, even from a fan perspective, and I'm a fan of the game as well, you want to see the best players playing. And for the Tigers to not have him in the team on the weekend, on Monday, that's a big call from the coach and the players. But I'm sure it's only a short-term thing that they're doing with him. Surely long-term, that they can come together, agree and get on with playing some footy. I mean, that's in the best interest of the player and also the club and the team.
Well, the other thing that's complicating is Latu Fainu, who's out this week. He's had surgery on a hand injury, but he's touch and go for the following week. So perhaps even if they do lose, they may give Latu Fainu the chance at number 6 before they bring Lockie back at all. So, there are
Is there really in-house fighting there with the senior players and him? And
Kevy, obviously we're going to touch on it later. I don't want to get too deep into it, but there has been tension between the senior players and Lachlan Galvin for a number of months. There's been whispers doing the rounds that perhaps they felt like he was a bit entitled and they could sense that he was getting a little bit on edge with the fact that things had changed at the Tigers and Jerome Luai was running the show and had a loud voice. So it all blew up once it all became public that he was walking out on the club. Is it repairable? Well, I think the actions and the words from the senior players spoke volumes for the situation. The fact that Api Coruscant admitted that he hasn't spoken to Lachlan Galvin since it all went down. Like, this is the captain of the club.
Yep. Yeah,
I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but that speaks volumes for how betrayed they feel by what Lachlan Galvin has done. Not the fact that he's left, but the stories that have come out and making Benji Marshall the scapegoat in this situation.
I mean, again, we'll get to it at 1 o'clock. But the whole social media thing also is kind of fascinating, isn't it? Because we all, old fogies like me go, oh, that's terrible, what's social media? But that's how young people relate to each other, and that's what we're not going to change that.
It is how we relate to each other.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Tony. I'll stay in your corner on this one.
I think it's probably disappointing, and if they had their time over, that they would react in a different way. Because we talk about
they would, Wedo.
Well, but this is
you reckon
thing.
They would?
This is a thing. Apparently, they're upset with a breach of trust from Lockie and his camp, and what they've said to Benji behind closed doors, and yet they've publicly come out and shamed a young kid in this way. Like it's a two-way street.
I think Taruva overstepped the mark.
Yeah, I think he did, and I don't think Luai's post was bad. Team first, like we know he backed that up again with his comments. But again, if I'm happy or if I'm Luai, and we have these issues at our club, there's no need to air it to the public. Like, let's get in behind closed doors and sort it out like men. And yes, there's some trust issues there, but they talk about team first. What's better for the team and better for the club? Airing out our dirty laundry or getting in behind closed doors and sorting it and getting our preparation right and winning footy games? Like it's a two-way street there. So I'd hope if they had their time again that they'd do it differently, but I don't know.
A lot of you have heard a lot of talk all week, and I know these three gentlemen have talked a lot all week about what's going on at the Tigers. Michael Chammas, if you could just set us up again, please, and then we can tee off.
What do you want to know, Tane? What don't you know?
I don't know where he's going.
Yeah, that's a good
I don't
question.
know whether he's going to last beyond this year or will he indeed stay till the end of his contract in 2026.
Yeah, look, from speaking to people there, I think that it is untenable for him to stay beyond this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves before June 30.
Really?
The Tigers need to get something out of it, though, Kevy. Like, he's not on a lot of money, so if they let him go, he doesn't really free up salary cap space for him. He's on $250 this year, $350 next year. The Tigers are in a situation where if they let him sit there for 18 months, they get nothing in return because he just walks as a free agent. So you're in a situation now where you can get something in return. And I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen in the next few months. Now, it doesn't mean that he goes immediately. Depends on where he goes. if it's Parramatta, they would want him immediately. And I imagine Parramatta would have an appetite, in the conversations I've had, is for Dylan to go to Newcastle immediately. So how does it work out for everyone? I tossed this up yesterday, that can you see a world where Galvin goes to Para, if indeed that's his desired home, Dylan goes to Newcastle, and the Knights give the Tigers something. And I know the Tigers have shown interest in Kai Pearce-Paul for next year. Perhaps that's the option, because it has to be something that benefits the Tigers, because there's no point.
Would Newcastle have the cap space for Dylan right now?
They don't, but if they let go of Kai Pearce-Paul, he's on big money. He's on 750. So if that happened, it's a chance. They've all got to get together, and the first step's going to be, and I think the egos will get in the way, but the first step's got to be who swallows their pride and says, what's our next move? Does Isaac go to the Tigers and say, do we have permission to negotiate with rival clubs? Because that's what it's going to start with. And if the Tigers, if they're smart, they'll say, yes, you have permission, but we will not release him unless we approve, unless we get something in return. So you go do your thing in the background and come back to us when you have a solution that works for us.
Do we think the Tigers, if they hang on to him and he stays there, can win a premiership next year? Make top 4, make top 8?
Well, it depends. Like, the thing is,
Like he's a good
Yeah,
player.
absolutely.
He's a good player.
but Kevin, the thing is, so the Tigers build around him and Luai for a season and a half, show improvement, but then knowing that he's going, have to restart that development with a new halves combo. Is that's the sort of the
Well,
club?
again, yeah.
That's the club probably question.
There's so many questions
Yeah.
that are unanswered,
Yeah.
and we don't know, you know.
My mail is that Jerome Luai thinks that Latu Fainu is as good, if not better, potentially, than Lachlan Galvin. And if he has that faith in Latu and he goes into that position and does well, then it's a no-brainer for the Tigers. That has to be their long-term solution. He's got a few more years on contract. He's on decent money, Latu Fainu. I think he goes up to 500. So that's your future. And Lachlan Galvin, we know what Jerome is like. We know what those senior players are like. I find it impossible to believe that once they've been burnt and feel they can't trust this kid, how he walks back into that football team and it becomes a productive environment. So
But the thing for me is, like, in that situation, like, and this is the optimist in me, it's the first time he's really had to handle a situation like this. It's been a big situation, and whether he managed it rightly or wrongly, I certainly think the club's at least half responsible for this mess as well. But you'd like to think there is a bridge back. He's only a kid. He might have made some mistakes with how he managed it, and some things that were said behind closed doors, getting back to Benji and whatnot. I'd like to think there is a bridge back, but if there's not, well, that's going to play out in the next couple of weeks, months, and they're going to need to get a result out of it. The thing for me about this whole situation is I just can't believe that the Tigers rushed to bring this to a head and get a hard and fast result out of it so soon. Time is on their side. If they want to pitch and get a decision out of Lachlan Galvin, and there's noise about that he sees his future potentially someone else, well, then back yourself as a club to keep winning footy games, to possibly make a run for a finals, get that emotional connection, get the fans coming back in. Then you pitch to Lachie, say, look, we're heading in the right direction. You have been a big part of this, and we see you being an even bigger part of this moving forward. Pitch to him then. And, okay, they go to Lachie and they want a hard and fast answer. Where his management, I think, has let him down is, no, we're not giving you an answer. Time is on our side. Lockie's only focus should be getting the training, working hard on his craft, preparing each week to go out there and play the best footy that he can and to gain experience and to become a better player. And then we'll sit down in November after all this water has gone under the bridge and we'll reevaluate our options then. I just don't know why they had to bring it to a head. And they can say, okay, they want a recruitment strategy. Oh, they want to know where their salary cap's going to be. That's a cop-out, mate. Like that's their job to manage that. And if they really wanted to keep him there, what's the best way to pitch to Lachie? Well, let him have some success and play some good footy and pitch it at the end of the year when you're making a run for the finals.
Because all they did was give the manager what he wanted,
Yeah,
which was a
100%.
window to start agitating.
Again, this is where I think he was let down a bit, and I feel for Lachlan Galvin. Like, Isaac's been around long enough. He knows exactly how this is going to play out. And is it the best interest in his client to be caught in the crossfire between the manager and the club and now the fans and now his teammates? It's a mess, and I feel for him. Listen, he's a young man. He's made some decisions, and he needs to live with the consequences of those decisions this time around. Will he learn from it? He will. It's painful and it's hard for him at the moment. But again, I think between the club and the management, it's almost irresponsible the way this situation has been handled and brought to a head when there was no need for it. Like the time is on both their sides. He's not off contract till the end of 26.
Yeah, in fact, the club's statement was, the way it was worded and how short it was an invitation for people to be angry who are fans. Yeah. An absolute invitation for them to. And that's what's happened. It's been, it's seething. It's one of those really, really bad breakups.
Don't you want to keep your fans happy and not incite them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. One person, obviously, Benji Marshall as the coach, you would have felt aggrieved that he was, being told that he was partly the reason because of the development that Lockie said he couldn't have under him as a coach, even though he was one of our great halves. But I think he's been very adult about it, certainly in that press conference on Thursday. Let's have a listen to what Benji had to say.
Oh, look, I was shocked by it, no doubt. And then a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, like, everyone thinks I can't coach anyway. So it's not that different to what's been said. All I can say is, he's played some pretty good footy in the last 12 months. Whether that's because of me or because of him, who knows? But he got the Prime Minister's 13 Rookie of the Year, and we revolved a lot of things around him. And I still think he's a great player, don't get me wrong. He owes me nothing. He owes our club nothing. At the end of the day, it is what it is. People move on, people come and go, but the club's bigger. The thing for us is we got him for the next 18 months. So he's got to get through this game, put himself in the frame for selection next week, and then go from there.
He may be dreaming and thinking that they have him for the next 18 months, but still, as in terms of the coach...
Yeah,
that response?
That's tough. It would have been very tough for Benji to hear. And I don't know Benji all that well, but from what I've seen and how he goes about his work, let's talk about his playing days. Like he's been in Lachlan's shoes he kept boasting on the scene, didn't he, as a 17 or 18-year-old kid, and then all of a sudden he's winning premierships or a premiership for the Tigers. So he's walked in those shoes, so he understands the pressure of it all. Yeah, and I think he's been very mature in his language that he used there in the presser. I'm sure that a lot of the other players, at the Tigers do not share the same agreements about Benji and his coaching methods, because otherwise Jerome Luai wouldn't have ended up there, and these players that they've signed wouldn't be there. So I thought it was a bit of a strange comment from the player. If you're not happy with your coach, you go and see him privately rather than do it publicly.
Well, this is the next part of the story, in my opinion, where Lockie and his camp's got to be a bit careful with how they manage the situation, because he's come out and has said he's worried about his development and the coach, and he thinks he's better off as at another club. Now, if he does get released and if he goes to Parramatta, for me that flies in the face of what he's actually said, because if you measure up the clubs right now side by side, you have to say West Tigers are trending more in the right direction. There's no guarantee that the Parramatta Eels are not going to go further backwards before forwards. We see a situation like Sean Lane. He's stepping away. There's a lot of guys off contract, so there's going to be a lot of transition with the roster. If you measure up even the guys in the team, like I know there might be relationship issues, but Jerome Luai versus Mitchell Moses. Now, I love Mitch as a player. Individually, one of the best halves in our competition, but career-wise, he really doesn't stand up to Jerome with what he's produced, 4 premierships, his stuff at origin level, and not to mention the fact that the team that he left has lost a lot of quality players over here. Kickow, Crichton, Burton, Api Coruscant, but they've never gone backwards since losing a player as much as they have since losing Jerome. Right. And he's that type of guy who lifts the dressing room up. He knows what it looks like. He knows what it feels like to win a premiership and get a team on board. So is it really going to develop him more if he ends up at Parramatta? I don't know. There's so many question marks on that decision. Now, maybe if he ends up at the Roosters, Trent Robinson, tick, I can understand that. The Bulldogs, with what Serraldo's producing, tick, I could understand that. That's the right direction. But if he ends up at Parramatta, particularly seeing as Isaac, his manager, manages Mitch, it becomes murky, and I think it flies in the face of a couple of comments that he said regarding his development and his future.
Kevy, I want to ask you, because Benji's a different person to you, but at the end of the day, everyone's got an ego and everyone feels like they're doing something that is for the greater good of the club. You've been in this situation.
Yeah.
Selwyn Cobbo I think it was 23, came out. I was just looking at the quotes now. He's a good person, like a good bloke, but I don't think he's a good coach.
He got the
He's
good
not
bloke
best.
wrong too.
Not the best coach, but he's all right. Like, how did you deal with that situation? Because at the end of the day, you got the best out of Cobbo and you made a grand final in that year.
Yeah, that was early that might have been January 1 or 2 it was. And as soon as I saw it, someone rang me and said, "Oh no, Selwyn's said something about you on socials or there's a story." So I rang Selwyn straight away. I was actually on holidays and I said, "Mate, what's this all about?" And he said, "Oh, what do you," he didn't even know that it had actually been released. So we got together pretty quickly and sorted it out as such and just got on with things. I mean, it's hard today being a coach when there's so many avenues for players to not so much hard, but that's the world you live in as a head coach. Players can criticize. Everyone's got an opinion. Players have opinions. And now with the social media platforms the way they are, some players, if they're not happy, will let other people know that they're not happy in the situation they're in. So I guess that's just the way it is. But I as a coach, you've got to be pretty thick-skinned, and Benji is pretty tough. And you've also got to have a lot of confidence in yourself and your ability and what you're actually doing, which I'm sure Benji has as well.
And to that point, Kevin, no doubt you and Selwyn mended that relationship, and you go on to play in a grand final together.
Yeah,
again, it highlights the reasoning. Why do they bring this situation to a head right now? Because sure, there's transitional issues. Maybe Luai's come over; he's a dominant voice, but that's going to happen. And then if you start winning games, and all of a sudden that relationships can always change.
But the difference is, Wado, in this situation with Kevy and Selwyn, while he made those comments and they were inappropriate in a team environment, it hasn't been a smear campaign. I'm sorry to use the word, but it didn't become personal. And they said, well, Kevy's sat down with him, and they've obviously sorted that out.
But why couldn't they do that?
Because this has become personal. When you bring the dossier of grievances, I know we've said that too many times, but when you start to use the examples that Isaac Moses used, like the fact that he pulled him out of a wrestling session to look after the kid, maybe it was preferential treatment, and Isaac's turned it into you're stunting his development because he needs to do more wrestling and improve his defense. Or when you start to hear some of the other things that have come out in the background, it becomes personal. Whereas actually, Selwyn said he was a good bloke. Selwyn said Kevy's a good bloke. That's not what's happening. And it's not just about his coaching here that the issue is, Wado.
It's more on his character, you think?
Well, it's both. It's both. There's Lachlan Galvin hasn't felt comfortable around Benji. I'm not saying he has a right to feel that way. I'm not saying Benji's done anything wrong. But there is more to this. And the way they are playing out and making it personal and trying to basically hang Benji out to dry to get the release that they seek, that's the difference here. That's why this situation is not something that you're going to mend overnight by sitting out having a coffee or El Jana or whatever you want to have.
I'm heading out west today, actually. I might swing into El Jana.
Yeah. Benji seems like he's going to see it out, though. He's confident he can sit down with Galvin, sort it out.
I think that's legal covering, Kevy.
Okay.
I think that the Tigers have got advice on the back of the Taruva post, on the back of these bullying claims, and they said, boys, we need to calm it down here. We need to make it clear he's got a road back to the NRL. We're not just ostracising him and sending him off to play New South Wales Cup. I think Benji was very, very clever in his words, and I think the Tigers know that this could get ugly, and they got to cover themselves.
How's it going to end? You know more about the situation than us. What are you thinking?
He'll get released.
What, sooner rather than later?
I think he gets released before June.
Where's he going to? You know?
I don't know. Do
you think he has already signed something? Not signed.
I don't think he's signed. I think that Parramatta are in a good situation, but the Bulldogs can give it a red hot crack.
And the Bulldogs?
Yeah. No, the Bulldogs I don't think it's a coincidence, Kevy, that your mate Gus has ended his 10-year feud with Isaac in the last 6 months.
Right.
I think they've been waiting for this moment. I think the Bulldogs have had conversations with Isaac about Lachie Galvin's future, which is okay. They just can't make him an offer. And I think that Parramatta, in their conversations with Mitchell and Isaac in the renegotiation where he extended and upgraded his deal, floated the possibility, more than just the possibility, of Lachie Galvin taking that number 6 if Dylan Brown went to Newcastle. How much trouble did I just get myself into there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, see you later on.
Absolutely, you're gone.
You better leave now.
I'm not sure whether we've finished with this discussion yet, or we'll come back again.
It's ongoing. It's not going to finish.
We'll
come back next week.
Can we make it end? I've been talking about it for the last 2 days in a row.
19. Absolutely.